Hi everyone, my name's Anne-Marie. Welcome to this Spellbinders card making project. We're going to be using quite a few different items from Spellbinders and I'm just going to run through them. Don't worry, everything I do use will be on my blog. So there'll be a full detailed description of the item used and a link through to the Spellbinders website for more information. So the first item that we're going to be using is Labels 54. We're going to be using the Bitty Blossom die to make the 3D roll flowers. We're going to be using the Arch Diamond die. We're going to be using the Special Birthday Sentiment rubber stamps. And then, one of my favourites, we're going to be using the Feisty and Fabulous rubber stamps. So if I've gone too quick, just check my blog for more information. So the first thing that I need is my base card. And this is an 8x8 inch base card in ivory. Now for anybody who's got difficulty getting hold of this size, I do have some downloads available to purchase in the 8x8 size. So you can either check my blog where it says store, or you can check on Facebook onto my fan-like page. I don't quite know what they call it, but there's a section, it says store, and then I've got a few different options of the 8x8 card and matching envelope kits to download so that you can literally print them off and make them yourself. So the first thing, as always, I'm going to just score along the edge using my bone folder to make sure that I've got a nice sharp score. It makes it look professional and it helps it stand up nicely. So we're going to now turn to the inside of our card. Now it's a really simple insert and really quick. It could be adapted for so many different cards that you make. The one die that I didn't show you is the Spellbinders Scalloped Edge Squares. So I will put details of that on my blog. So I've cut out, using one of the Scalloped Edge Squares, some fancy paper. Now this is from the Sweet Paris collection from Dovecraft. It could be any paper. It just so happens I thought this was quite pretty and it would work really nicely as a pink and green mix, because I kind of like pink and green together. So I'm literally going to position this through the centre of our card. And the reason that we make really pretty insides is because we take so long on the outside making them pretty. It's as if sometimes that we forget about the inside. It doesn't have to be totally striking inside, but it just kind of marries up with the outside. So that's the first thing that I've done. I've cut an aperture using Labels 54 through the centre of the scalloped square, and then using Labels 54 I've cut out an ivory shape, and I've just inked it slightly around the edge using spun sugar ink, and I've stamped it through the middle, and it says sending you oodles of love and birthday wishes. And this is from the Spellbinders stamps, the birthday sentiments. It gives a good clear stamp. They're really nice to use. I've used them on a lot of my projects for Spellbinders, because they are just such a good stamp. So what we're going to do is we're going to position the aperture that we've cut into the aperture that we've cut out, if that makes sense, so that it sits inside the aperture of the Labels 54, and it's nice and flat, so we're not adding any extra bulk to our card. Now that's the inside finished. We've got enough room for our message, to and from, etc. And it's just a nice, pretty inside. So now we can turn our attention to the outside of the card. And this is where it gets a little bit special, I think, for this one. We're going to use a base layer, again, from the Sweet Paris collection. And I've cut it to fit the base of the card. I've got double-sided tape on the back of it, so we just want to have our base layer of some colour. So this card, it doesn't take a lot of paper, but it's one that you can use really pretty paper on. Sometimes we save our really pretty papers. I think this is one to use it on. So I've added the base layer through the centre of the card, like that. Then I've die cut the arched diamonds, and I've cut them twice, and I'm actually going to make a frame from them. So what I did was I die cut them twice, and then I've simply cut them through the centre, and we'll show you how I did it. I snipped it through the centre of all 4 of them, and then edge to edge I marry up the little diamonds in the corner like that, and I added a brad, and then I did the same for the other 2 and married them all up, and this is how it looks when it's married up with the little brads in the corners. I've slightly inked it because I cut it, die cut it in ivory, so I've just slightly inked it with spun sugar, and I've got 3D foam on the back of it. So I'm simply going to position it through the centre of my card. Then I've used the scallop again in a slightly smaller size. I've added 3D foam on the back of it. I've used the same colour paper for the actual scallop die, and I'm just going to straighten that up because it looks a little bit wonky. So it's just good to show that, you know, I can make things wonky as well, and it's not really going to lift very well there. So we'll do it that way, and it just goes to show. I had a message from a lady actually, and she says, do you know what, I love watching you because it just goes to show that perfection is only in our eyes. And I said, well, yes, when we give a product, a card, scrapbook page away, nobody's going to see your faults, only you see your own faults. So now that's straighter, I can add my scallop square. I've got 3D foam on the back of it, and the square is just slightly bigger than the inside of the frame, so it covers over the little bits that crossed over at the edges, and it sits nicely, showing that such a pretty frame. Now next, what I've done is I've got a ribbon that will match the paper, and I'm going to add this at the top of my card like that, and I've just got a little bit of foam padding under there. Next I'm going to use some silicone glue, and I've got not only a paper flower that's ready made, I can add my silicone to the back of it if I can get the silicone out of the tube. There we go. And all preparation. It was fine yesterday, and today it isn't. There we go. Come on, silicone glue. Out you come. So just break that little seal there. There we go. And I can squeeze it up the tube. Now I'm glad this has happened, you know, because it shows another way to be able to get your silicone out with the key. This was not a key that I got with a glue. It was a key that I got with some hand cream, and I used the hand cream, and now I'm utilising the key for the silicone. There we go. So I can add my flower at the side of the bow, and then I've used the Bitty Blossom die, and I've made 2 paper roses, and I can add those at the other side of the bow. This is the second one. These are in coordinating paper, just a little bit of pink paper. So we'll squeeze those together over the top of the bow. And then to finish it off, I've got a sentiment. Now I didn't want to put the sentiment on first because I wanted to see where the flowers would lie. I've cut out using label 54 and I've inked around the edge, leaving the die in position so that I've got an ivory edge around the outside. And then I've used the Feisty and Fabulous stamps, and I've stamped the sentiment through the centre. I've got 3D foam on the back, and I want to just slot that underneath the flower. And that is our card finished. Such a pretty card. I hope my flowers are stuck on for me to open it. So that's our inside and that's our outside. They match perfectly. It's such a pretty card without being too over the top. It's a little bit different because you're utilising your border dies and using them for something that you maybe wouldn't have thought of using them for. It'll stand up nicely. Now I'm hoping that my flowers don't drop off. It'll stand up nicely and it will still go in an envelope because the flowers aren't too high and the envelopes are always slightly bigger than the card, so there's enough gap to get, you know, your card in. So I really hope you've enjoyed watching this, mistakes and all. Well, when I say mistakes, just, you know, delays. It's such a pretty card, and check my blog for so many other projects where I probably are a bit more professional and my glue works on those. But hey ho, I love hearing from you. Please, you know, if you've got any comments, feel free to comment on my blog. You can always find me on Facebook, so check me out there. And I'd just like to say thank you so much for putting up with me, and I shall see you next time.